If the book contains the message, then that is what is important to a Christian. It does not, yes you can, it does not matter if they are word for word the same. What matters is if the message is the same. So you've demonstrated already that you don't understand my religion.
No.
Reply.
First of all,
thank you very much. Yeah, it's all right. Yes, thank you. Yeah, brilliant.
I can hold up.
That'd be great. Hold on to it tightly. People try to steal my Quran. Don't let anyone nick it.
First of all,
if they try to nick it, rip its pages.
First of all, about the message. You said we should believe in the message. I will tell him something and he pass it to 10 other people. That message is already collected. If you go in today's court, I've given you money and it's verbal. They won't agree with it. You need some written proof. I never said I don't understand your religion. I never said your religion is a lie. I'm just saying that there are a lot of change. Because it's old, there are a lot of changes. And if you follow the true teaching of Jesus, we believe in him, you would end up in the same path. But the thing is, I'm just saying that my religion teaches the same thing, and right now it has a bit more authenticity to it because you have so many versions of Bibles and every version has some difference in it. So which one I would believe in?
Okay, wait, I want to reply to that. No, okay. Secondly, we're doing point for point.
All right.
So once again, you've repeated the same mistake as before.
Don't say this.
No.
Right. I haven't.
I'm going to interrupt you now whenever I want. So you've repeated the same mistake as before, because the reality is that if you take the time to study the scriptures, which you haven't, in the Gospel of Luke, in the writings of John, in the writings of Paul, you see very clearly in the first chapter of Luke, in the last chapter of John, in 1 Corinthians 15, that all of those three writers are referencing an earlier tradition that existed before they wrote about it. So in other words, what they're saying is that my writings match up to this tradition that existed before I wrote the book. And that is the fact, that they are speaking to a people that already believe in these traditions, and that's why they can write these traditions to them. Because when they write these traditions to them, these people who are reading the book are aware of what these traditions are because they believed it before they read about it. That means that what you have to do to demonstrate your case, you have to provide an original Injil that is so radically different from my Gospels that it would be unarguable to say that I have the same message. That's what you must do. But you can't do that. I want you to either admit that you can't do that or to provide the original Injil that will clearly show that the message of the first Christians was lost. Can you do that?
Okay, of course I can't provide that Injil, but you just said one thing.
You can't prove it, bro. You've just said.
No, you just said one thing. I would point it out. You said some people read the message and they wrote the book.
Yes.
The book we have is directly from the God. So which one should we believe in? A person who has a message, he wrote it, or the one directly from the Almighty? This is one point. And secondly, if you
let me address that point. We're doing
one more thing.
We're doing point for point.
Okay, sure.
Now you said, which book should we believe in? The one that comes directly from God, or the one that was written by men? Well, firstly, again, you've demonstrated that you don't understand what my religion teaches. Because my religion teaches that the Spirit of God inspired those men that wrote that book. So we do believe that the Gospels are from God, but we understand that the way that God communicates is different from how you understand it. It's not ad verbatim as you understand it. Now you said we should surely therefore believe in the Quran, but I don't believe that the Quran comes from Allah. I believe that the Quran comes from a demon, a shaitan, a Satan, who opposes the truth, lied to Muhammad, so he had a real spiritual experience, but lied to Muhammad to oppose the truth of the gospel. No.
To oppose the truth. But in the Quran, we mentioned 25 prophets, and it also mentions Jesus Christ as one of the most beloved prophet of God.
Yeah.
And that his nation, the people he was commuting his message to, as one of the favorite people of Allah. And you say he's a demon. Come on, man. Are you that lost? And secondly, one more
No, let me reply to that. Let me reply to that.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
The reason why we know as Christians that the Quran is from a Satan, right, which means the accuser, an enemy of the human race, is because the truth is found in Jesus Christ and in the teachings of the apostles, who clearly teach that Christ was crucified, that he did die, and that he rose again on the third day, right? Now that's a claim that we can test historically. We can look to see if other writers talk about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And they do. They confirm that Jesus Christ was crucified. So in other words, it's a historical fact that Jesus was crucified, but the Quran lies and says Jesus wasn't crucified. Now only the devil is a liar, not God. We don't put lies into the mouth of God. And Muslims believe that Allah changed the appearance of another human being to look like Jesus, and that is a deception. Only the devil lies. Jesus says that the father of lies is Satan. That's why we know it's from the devil.
Okay, I will just. You didn't answer what I just said. Okay, so what I just said, I didn't say any verse. I said in generalized. It says to follow Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It says that there were a lot of prophets before him. It says that he was one of the most beloved person of Allah, and his people were one of the most beloved nations of Allah. Now you pointed out one thing which doesn't match the Bible and the Quran, and you based all your conversation on that, and you were saying constantly about that person and that he's repeating a script. Now I would say the same to you. You are repeating a script.
And you're right. I am repeating a series of arguments that demonstrate why Muslims shouldn't believe in Allah. And I'll prove it to you. According to your science of hadith, if someone is a known liar, should you believe them? Of course. In your science of hadith, you say if someone's a liar, you don't believe their report. But I've just demonstrated to you that your God lies. And if he lies, according to your science of hadith, you shouldn't follow his report. You shouldn't believe his hadith. And so my point to you is, in fact, no, I'm not going to make another point, and I'm not going to repeat the point I've made because I want to be fair to you. So that was the point I made, so I'll let you reply to that.
Okay, so one more thing.
Are we changing points?
No, now I want to point out a few things. You mentioned...
Oh, we're changing points.
You mentioned Gospel of John. You mentioned Gospel of Luke. What was the name of the other book I told you? Gospel of Isaac.
I didn't say Gospel of Isaac.
Okay. He didn't say that. Okay, one more thing. Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 21. Jesus Christ said, my words are not my own, they are my Father's.
Correct.
So he clearly mentions that he's not the God. There is a higher power than him.
Wait, let me reply to the back. No, one at a time. You're wanting this discussion with me.
Okay.
I don't need to talk to you. I'm humoring you. So, firstly, I note that you want to change the topic, you want to get off the problems inside the Quran, and you want to go to your script about pointing out problems of the Bible.
Come back to it.
But I will happily deal with each one of your verses in turn. So Jesus does say that the words that he speaks are the words of the Father. As a Christian, I believe that completely, and as a Christian, that sits completely within my understanding of the Trinity. Because the Father is represented by the Son perfectly. So perfectly does the Son represent the Father that Jesus says, when you see me, you see the Father. That Paul writes about Jesus Christ, that he, referring to Jesus, is the exact icon of God, the exact image of God. And so, everything that Jesus does, everything that Jesus says, is representing the Father to us. And so as a Trinitarian, I completely affirm the verse, that Jesus is representing the Father to us, and so his words are the Father's. And that also matches with Deuteronomy 18:18 that speaks about Jesus Christ as being a prophet who will be like Moses, who will speak the words of God, not his own words. Unless he invites you in, this is our conversation. It's up to him whether you join.
Can I ask him a question? Yeah, sure. Is Jesus Christ a human?
Yes. So let me answer. No, stop. Let me answer that question, and then I'll allow you. As you see, I do answer your question. So Christians believe that Jesus Christ is divine and that he takes to himself a complete humanity. And you might go, how does that even work? I don't get that. You've got exactly the same analogy in your own religion. You believe that the Quran is literally the words of Allah, right? But Allah's attributes are infinite, they are not possessed, they are not material, but I have in my bag a book that you will also identify as the words of Allah. So in other words, the words of Allah exist in two states. One, on the pen and the paper, and two, in the eternal attribute. God, the Logos, Jesus Christ, in the same way takes to himself a flesh, so he exists in a humanity without ever losing his divinity.
Also, so
It's up to him. It's up to him.
Yeah. I'll ask another follow-up question.
Okay, he will ask one and then I will ask one and you can answer both.
No, I will answer his, then I will answer yours.
So, following on from the previous question, if he is human, previously you said that he basically represents God. He's an image of God.
Yeah.
So if he is human, so that means he eats, he drinks.
Yes.
So if he is a representation of God the Father, that means that basically God the Father also eats, drinks, and other things that are with him. Yes.
Okay, so let me reply to that. So the true, when we say that Christ represents God the Father to us, the exact image of God the Father, this is not a denial of his humanity. His humanity needs to sleep, his humanity needs to eat, his humanity needs to go to the toilet. When he's representing the Father to us, he's representing the Father in his character, his moral actions, all of these things. We're not saying that God the Father goes to the toilet. We're not saying that God the Father sleeps. We're not saying that God the Father, or even God the Son in his divinity, right? No, don't be rude. Don't be rude. Unfortunately, we always get these Muslims who think that they own the park and can behave like a jackass. No, I'm having a conversation. Stop being rude. Now, the point is, if I've got this Quran in my bag and I burn it, have I burnt the word of Allah? No, of course I've not. You don't believe I can destroy the word of Allah by destroying the Quran, but if I spit on the Quran in front of you, you're going to get offended. Why? Because that is the word of Allah. So in other words, things can happen to the material word of Allah that offends you, that gets you angry, that's disrespectful, but you would never say that I've managed to do the same to the attribute of Allah. And in like manner, Christ can go to the toilet, sleep and eat, but that doesn't mean there's any deficiency in his divinity.
Okay.
His turn.
Yeah, so just one thing, you said, just
Okay, thank you very much. It's all right, brother. Thank you.
Just to repeat what you said, and that's what I'm understanding. So you just said that Christ, or the words of Christ, are the exact, or Christ
They are the words of the Father.
Are the Father.
Yeah.
So we can both agree that Christ was the messenger of Father.
Yes,
So we do agree on.
we agree on that.
Yeah, so that was my initial point. That's where we go different ways. Because we believe in Christ, we agree with him, but we believe him as a God and as a messenger apparently at the same time. But we believe in him just as a messenger, like we believe in Muhammad as the messenger.
Let me reply to that. Because if Jesus really is God, right, do a thought experiment with me. If our claim about Jesus is true, isn't incumbent upon you to worship him? Yeah, exactly. So, no, hold on one second. So this difference is really important. It's not to be diminished. If Jesus really is God, then you should bow down in worship to him. If Jesus is not God, I am a blasphemer against God, right? So this is not some little thing. And the fact of the matter is, Jesus does claim to be God. We have his words where he says that. And I'll prove it to you. According to the Quran, who is the first and the last? Allah. According to the Bible, do you know Jesus is the first and the last?
Did Jesus himself say that?
Yes, he does.
Which was?
I can show you.
I want you.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Research that.
Yeah, I'll show you. Right? Now, my point to you is that here we have this divine title that Jesus is using. Why does Muhammad steal Jesus' divine titles and apply them to Allah? Because this book that I'm about to read from you came long before the Quran. Long before the Quran. So let's have a look. This is Jesus speaking. Behold, I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me, to render to every man according to what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Who can come before the first? Who can come after the last?
It also can mean
Go on.
he's the first and the last in terms of command from the God. It doesn't say he's the God.
No, hold on one second. You see, you're doing that cherry picking thing that all Muslims do. Who's the beginning?
Okay.
Who's the end? According to the Quran, who's the beginning and the end?
Now,
Allah.
okay.
So Jesus is calling himself God. Now this book came before your Quran. So I now ask you, why did Muhammad steal the divine titles of Jesus and give them to Allah?
Okay, now my question is.
Now I want you to answer my question. I've answered yours.
Yeah, okay, it's kind of an answer to it, but in form of question, all right?
All right, go on then.
So, how can you say this book is more authentic than the Quran? Because it's before, so there's a higher chance of this being slightly changed than the Quran.
Okay.
Can you agree with that?
Let me reply to that, right? Just so we don't get stuck on this point,
Yeah.
right? I am going to admit to you, and admit through the argument, that my New Testament, the words of that New Testament have been slightly changed. So hopefully now we can get past that point. So I've just admitted it. But the question is, has it been changed so much that the message has been lost? Because if I change a pronoun here and a word over there, anyone with a brain can still learn the message. Agreed? Am I being fair? If you wrote an essay and someone came along and changed maybe 5 words in a 3,000 word essay, well, let me finish, and changed like the odd pronoun, name for a pronoun, or changed one adjective for a different adjective, right? Or even changed like an active voice to a passive voice, or even a verb, changed a single verb in a particular phrase. And I'm now going to see how honest you are. Would you agree that someone coming to read that essay would still learn the point that you're making?
If it was a human who wrote it, definitely yes. But if
Thank
it is,
you.
if it is God, if it is God, then no.
Right, but here's the problem. Right, let me reply to that because
One more thing.
I'm replying to your point. Every single text on earth and every single Quran on earth has been written by a human being. All of them.
It has been, right?
Thank you.
It was perfectly memorized in those years after Prophet's death. It was written immediately within the first 2 years. So it was perfectly memorized and it was unaltered. Now,
wait, no, let me reply to that point. Right, and firstly, I just want to say thank you for the really nice, gentle way you've conducted yourself. I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I really appreciate the way you're behaving. But my point to you is that if you admit, as you have done on record, that a text, even if we change it slightly, can still preserve the message, right? Then what you must now do, and you've admitted that you can't do, is produce the original that demonstrates that my Bible has been so radically changed that the message has been lost. Wait, let me finish. The reason why I say that is this. Because if you go and you get any of the early manuscripts of the Bible, and there are 2 from the 4th century in the British Library today, the Codex Sinaiticus and the Codex Vaticanus, they match what I have in this book. But they also have additional books that I don't have in here, right? But where the books match, the texts match, and the message matches, not perfectly, not word for word, but you have the same message from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in this as you will from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, and they're from the 4th century, which predates Islamic claims of the corrupt Bible. So reply to that.
so one more thing. The problem is that we are considering right now Bible to be the word of God. The humans wrote it by being inspired by the Holy Ghost, right?
Yes, that's our understanding of the word of
So
God.
the problem is, if it is from God, like you said, if the word changes and it's being written, so if Magna Carta, for example, the word is changing, message remains the same, I agree. But this the problem with the Christian claim is you are saying that God has written it. So if the word of God is altered, regardless of the message, if the word of God is altered, then the whole script is different.
Wait, let me reply to his. Let me reply then to you. So the problem is you're assuming that your understanding of Revelation is normative. I want you to understand. I chuck your understanding of Revelation in the bin. I think that your understanding of Revelation is nonsense. Utter nonsense.
Okay.
Because you're trying to tell me that God can't become a man, but then in the next breath you're trying to say God can make his word appear in creation and that you can hold it in your hand, the Quran. And that's just a contradictory kind of notion. What I'm saying is a better understanding of Revelation. And it's a two-part understanding of Revelation. God becomes a man, or God does something in history like perform a miracle or help a prophet, and then his spirit guides the people to write down in their words what God did. So in other words, the action or the event comes first, the beliefs that surround that event come first, and then they're poured into a book. Yours is the other way around. You're saying that the revelation makes the prophet, i.e. the revelation came first and then the prophet appears, right? But that's backwards.
No.
It's totally backwards. Your understanding of Revelation is not normative. I'm inviting you to a better understanding of Revelation.
Okay.
Right, your point.
He didn't say that. So our understanding of the revelation, because Quran was revealed in bits by bits over 23 years, and the prophet can't read or write. So he used to speak the word of God, and his friends or his followers used to write it on somewhere, write it on like camel skin, leaves, a lot of things.
Yes.
And then later it was compiled in a form of a book. That's why we never say that Quran is in the same formation, because we say that Quran are the exact same words of God, but we never say that in the same order as it was revealed.
So let me reply. Have you finished your point? I don't want to interrupt you, you're still making the same point.
Kind of, all right, yeah.
Okay, but the point is, we know that your Qurans have been changed. Here's your evidence. Dr. Daniel Brubaker has a channel called Variant Quranic Texts. And all he does is he just documents how the Qurans of your oldest Qurans are different from your modern Quran. And he just documents where the texts are different. Now, I want to be clear. I am not saying that the text of the Quran has been so changed that the message of the Quran has been lost. I actually think that the Quran has been very well preserved. That the Quran that we have today is pretty much the Quran that existed at the beginnings of Islam. I'm happy to concede that. But it isn't identical to the Quran that existed in the 7th century.
Can you answer that?
And I can prove it from your own hadiths. But yeah, go on.
I will answer that. Okay. In the time of our third caliph, Hazrat Uthman, he did a survey and he found difference in Quran.
There you go.
Okay, now what he did to preserve it, because a lot of people had memorized the Quran from the same person who compiled it, Hazrat Zad, I believe it was Hazrat Zad who compiled it. So he took his copy and sent it to every city and his empire, and they made sure that they take every Quran, check it, and deliver the same, the one Quran, the same as the Hazrat Zad's copy to every household. And in that same day, the Quran was repeated through the mosque on loudspeaker for 3 days consecutively, so everyone can correct what they have in their houses. So now, how can you say when such measures were taken? So
let me reply to that. Let me reply to that. Because I know the history of this better than you do.
Yeah.
Firstly, there were no loudspeakers in the 7th century. That was a historical anachronism. Secondly, your own hadiths testify that after the Battle of Yamamah, when many of the reciters of the Quran died, that Uthman was warned by the other companions Let me finish. Abu Bakr, sorry. No. I'm talking about the Uthmanic recension. Listen. So after listen. Right. So the people were disagreeing about what the Quran says, and they were worried that if we don't do something, that the Muslim, the Ummah, will become like the Jews and the Christians and argue about what their book says. That's what your hadiths talk about. And how did he try to save the Quran? He wrote a text. He didn't set up reciting schools. He wrote a text which should tell you something. That the preservation of the Quran is a textual preservation, not a recitation. Now, why does that matter? Why does that matter? Because when we compare different Qurans from different places in the world, written at different times, they are not the same. They have different words. Those different words change the localized meaning of the text. They don't lose the message of the Quran, I'm not claiming that. They don't change the message of the Quran in any great way. But in those particular verses, it has an impact of what that particular verse means. And that means your Quran is very well preserved, but it is not perfectly preserved, which means that if you're consistent to your attitudes and beliefs, you should reject Islam, not Christianity.
In the same hadith.
Don't listen to it. He's an Islamist. Don't be like him.
In the same hadith book, the Prophet himself said that Quran was revealed in 7 recitations.
Right.
The differences that you are talking occurred because of these 7 recitations when Islam spread in Iraq and in Syria and in non-Arabic countries. There was this confusion that was occurring. It wasn't because the Quran was completely changed. It was these different recitations that non-Muslims could not, non-Arabs could not understand. So what Usman did, he basically unified those recitations, and the person who wrote this textual text was Zayd ibn Sabit, who was himself a recitator of the Quran. Now we believe that Quran is the unaltered word of God, and it's preserved in Lawh Mahfuz. What you are saying here, this written Quran, we say that is basically a reflection of that thing. So this can be created, and of course it's created when you're writing a word. That word is
exactly.
But in the Lawh Mahfuz and God himself, when he spoke those words themselves are existing.
So let me reply to that, because we can see that the Islamic history doesn't stand up to the script that you've been taught in the mosque. According to your own hadiths, it was understood in the earliest Muslim community that stoning people for adultery was a punishment. And Muslims still do it today. But that verse is not found in the Quran. There's no verse in the Quran that talks about stoning people for adultery. And in that hadith that I'm referencing, that's found in Sahih al-Bukhari, it says, the narrator says, that I am concerned that in the future, Muslims will stop doing something that Allah has commanded because it cannot be found anymore in the Quran. Second evidence to the same. According to these hadiths that we're talking about, that talk about how the Quran was compiled, they talk about one of the chief narrators of the Quran rejecting the copy of the Quran created by Zayd under Uthman and telling people to hide the Quran that they had learned from him, from Uthman, and trying to protect it and not follow the one produced by Uthman under Zayd. So what's really happening? What's happening is this. The first Islamic empire was the Abbasid Empire. Was it Abbasid? No, or Umayyad? Umayyad, sorry, I often get these two mixed up. So the Umayyad Empire was the first Islamic empire. And what they believed as Muslims is actually different from what you believe as Muslims. When the Umayyads overthrew the Abbasids, they started having to justify why they did it. Why they... What?
Abbasids
overthrew the Umayyads. That's what I thought.
Abbasid was after.
Yeah, I often get these. Sorry. So the Umayyads were first and then overthrown by the Abbasids. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I get it right. So when the Abbasids overthrew the Umayyads, they had to justify why they had done that. And they did that by creating evidence to justify it. And so you see these different stratas of evidence in Islamic texts that indicate that there was a revision to Islam between the Umayyads and the Abbasids, because they had to justify what they had done,
Not with the Quran. Not with the Quran.
including the Quran.
Okay, all right. So first, like when we were speaking, when that guy was speaking about corrupting the Bible or changing the Bible,
Yeah.
you said if you are saying that, can you bring me original Bible?
Yes.
So for the corruption of Quran, you said reciting. So bring me two reciters of Quran who are approved by a proper mosque which is lasted for like at least 10 years.
Yeah,
And when they recite, you tell me where they differ.
I can do that. That is a fair question, it's a fair test. You get a reciter of the Hafs, and you get a reciter, wait. You asked me, I'm answering your question.
Okay.
If you get a reciter of the Hafs, and you sit him right next to a reciter of the Wash, and you get them to recite at the same time, 99% of what they say will be the same. But there will be words that differ between those two reciters. So I have proven the point. I have proven the point.
So is it because of the accent?
No, it's because
No, it's
it's
different
not.
words.
Like I said, in Sahih Bukhari it says that the revelation itself came in 7 forms. So what you are saying with the Hafs and
Yeah. So answer me this then. If it comes in 7 forms, why are there more than 31 texts? Exactly. There are. That's the point. You don't know, guys. You're just repeating what you've been told in the mosque. You've not checked. But we Christians have checked. Listen.
No. This is not an answer to our question. Like I never said anything that you are teaching wrongs in the church, or someone is teaching you wrong, or you are a bad priest. But you keep on saying this is what's wrong with the mosque. This is what's wrong with
They are lying to you, guys. They are lying to you.
calligraphy is different.
What?
Would you like it? Would you like it if I said the same to Christianity?
I can't hear you, bro, with a mask.
I need you to move there.
But let's move this way a bit. So we're just moving away from the noise a bit. Right. So the thing is, if you've got different recitations of the Quran, right? Remember that the evidence that you're using is disputed, right? Shia, Sunni don't have the same hadith. They don't trust the same hadiths.
But that's secondary.
Wait. The hadiths that you're using are from 2 centuries after Muhammad. Now, why would they talk about 7 different recitations 2 centuries after Muhammad? Because Muslims 2 centuries after Muhammad were aware that there were different Qurans. How do Muslims preserve their text? How do Muslims preserve the recitation? Sahih al-Bukhari says, when the recitation is in danger, you write it down. And thus, Muslims write down their recitations. That's why you've got a Hafs Quran and a Wash Quran. But we Christians have identified over 31 different texts. That means there's over 31 different recitations. Because if you're reciting from a Quran and there are 31 different texts, then you're reciting your reply.
Honestly, this is the first time I'm
That's fine.
I don't have the knowledge to answer that, but I would definitely research that.
Please do.
But again, so coming now, let's move past this point.
Okay.
And let's come back to the Bible.
Yes.
You said that some of the books of Bible are missing, right?
No, we Christians, right, you've got to understand that our scripture is different to yours. Our scripture is kind of like your hadith collections. Because in your hadith collections, you have things that you say, this is what Allah said. You have things that you say, this is what a man said. Right? So it's not an exact comparison. Our Bible is not like your hadiths. But the closest thing to our Bible in your literature is the hadith. Okay? Which means that just like Muslims disagree about which hadiths to believe in, Christians disagree about which books of the Bible to disagree with, to agree with, to believe in. But let's be clear, every single Christian on earth, all of them, agree about the 27 books of the New Testament, and there is no Christian on earth that disagrees with any book of the New Testament. Right? All of us. And anyone who speaks against the book of the New Testament is corrected by their brothers and sisters, just like Martin Luther was at the Reformation.
Now, the thing is, with us Muslims, we have Hadith, we have Quran, which
Yeah.
is the central test,
Yeah.
that's the bedrock, and we have the Hadith. Now, Hadith is debatable, I agree.
Hadith is secondary.
And between different texts. But the problem, that's the problem with Christianity. If
Yeah.
your central text is fluid, then you cannot have those direct commandments which God wants to offer.
No, let me reply to that point. Bro, we moved away for... Right, so my point to you is that again, you're assuming that your understanding of Revelation is the right one. I'm telling you, your understanding of Revelation makes no sense and I reject it. I'm inviting you to a better understanding of Revelation, a better one. And that means that the fluidity of the text is not as important as the faithfulness of the message. And we can, through textual criticism, look at the message down through the centuries, and we find that what Christians preach and believe today is what Christians preached and believed in the first century. Fact. So Arianism was a 3rd century heresy or a 4th century heresy, not based upon having a different Bible, but based upon having a different philosophy, making up a Greek philosophy and trying to impose it into the Bible. Arius didn't argue about what books of the Bible to believe in. He argued about how to believe what those books were teaching. And he was rejected by all of his peers. Right? So I think this has been a really wonderful conversation. I want to let you make your final point and then I'll reply to that and then maybe we should wrap this up.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing. Let's come now. Okay, we have 2 different books. We can fairly agree that we would never agree with each other on which one is more right.
Yeah.
Right? But for Book of Frogo.
Book of what?
I might be saying the wrong name. It was from Book of Frogo. It's something with the F.
You're gonna have to help me a bit more than that, bro.
Because
there's no Book of Frogo, so.
Okay. I'm.
That's fine. Don't worry.
5 minutes.
I'm not trying to embarrass you. I just don't recognize. Anyway, read it. Maybe I'll recognize it when I hear it. Read it. Maybe I'll recognize when I hear
it.
it.
In chapter 20, verse 8 of that book, it says you shouldn't consume alcohol. But because I used to, when I was a student here, I used to go to Christian Union every day just to know about their religion.
Yeah.
So over here, one thing I learned that there are 2 verses which says not to eat pork, not to eat alcohol, but all of them were following it. And one of the book of the pork one, this like you mentioned that book Gospel of Luke. Okay, never mind. That's a different book. And about circumcision in Gospel of Luke, it says
bro.
Christ was circumcised on the 8th day. I don't see these things in any of the Christians I know.
Okay, let me address that point. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to address it by just showing to you that your own Quran disagrees with your logic. So if we go to Surah 350, and I want to read 2 verses to you, so don't interrupt me after the first one.
All right.
Right, in Surah 350, listen to what Jesus says. Okay? Right, this is Jesus speaking. I have come to you to attest to the law of Moses, which was before me, and to make lawful to you part of what was before forbidden.
Yes.
So in other words, he's saying what was haram is now halal. Now let me show you another verse. This is still Jesus speaking. In Surah 4, 160. In Surah 4, 160, it says this. Right? Bear with us. Sorry, it takes me a minute. So in Surah 4, 160, Jesus speaking says this. For the iniquity of the Jews, we made unlawful for them certain foods good and wholesome, which had been lawful for them. So Jesus, in the Quran, says, what was haram, I've made halal, and what was halal, I've now made haram. Okay. So, as Christians, we believe in exactly the same thing. Jesus Christ made pork halal. It was haram. Jesus Christ, by the way, the Bible never forbids Christians from drinking alcohol. Never. Show me the verse if it does. Right? Jesus Christ himself drank alcohol. I want to be clear about something. Because if you've ever hung around with Christians, you recognize, yes, they drink alcohol, but they don't get drunk. And when Christians do get drunk, it's considered a sin by other Christians. It's considered a social taboo by other Christians. If a Christian gets drunk at a social gathering by other Christians, he gets himself a bad reputation. It's not looked upon as a good thing. But the reality is, as someone who does drink alcohol, speaking to people who've clearly never, good Muslims who've never drank any alcohol, I promise you, you're not going to start raping and pillaging people and running around naked because you have a little glass of wine. It's never going to happen, bro. Unless that evil is already inside of you. All alcohol does is turn off the inhibitors. If you've got evil inside you, you'll do it with a lot of alcohol, right? But if you're a good person, right, if you get drunk, you'll do good things, but you'll just do them clumsily.
Just to clarify that verse, when he says, I'm going to make lawful for you, which was unlawful,
Yeah.
so it says some. And in our understanding, just to present my point,
Yeah.
those some things was camel's fat. That was not alcohol and
But the Quran doesn't say that, does it?
I know, but you can see it.
And how I know Quran said, like, because after Muhammad became the prophet,
Yeah.
his messenger used to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
And one time they were praying, and because they were clumsy, they were saying the verses wrong. They weren't drunk.
Yeah.
They were praying, but they were clumsy. They were saying the verses wrong. Because of that reason, alcohol was made forbidden.
So guys, let's draw this to a close, right? I want to thank you. What's your names?
Hamza.
Hamza, really lovely speaking to you, Hamza. What's your name?
Umair,
Umair. Like you guys, I love speaking to guys like you.
what's your name?
Bob. Right? I love speaking to guys like you because you're sincere and you're polite and respectful. So thank you so much for that. As a sign of goodwill for the fact that you've had this polite conversation, I'd like to give you a book as a gift. That's my gift to you. Have you got a Bible? Right, well, that's a Bible for you. Now, the thing about that Bible is it's written in Old English. So every now and then you might need to go and look at a dictionary to find out what a word means. But I'm sure you can work Google, you know.
Can you just give me the name of the book? Because
I'm giving it to you, bro. I don't need to give you the name. I'm giving you the book. That's for you.
I know, I understand. I respect that, but I just can't tell you because I have to travel tomorrow.
Then in that case, let me give you a book you can fit in your pocket. There you go. A book that you can fit in your
I
pocket.
actually have this.
You have that. Then let me give you a different one. Have you got a Bible?
No, no.
Then let me give you that one. So there you go. It was really lovely talking to you guys. And I want to just encourage you. Let go of all these Islamic arguments, or at least see if they're telling the truth. Test the arguments that Muslims tell you, and see if maybe they're either erroneous arguments or whether they're actually just fabrications.
No, the thing is, like, the one thing I've noticed, it's like, let's say the young generation of Muslims and the young generation of the Christians I saw. It might be different in different countries, but what I've seen over here, we tend to follow the religion more than the Christians I've seen.
You just need to meet more Christians, bro, because you know what your mistake
I
is?
used to go to a Christian
You know the thing is, you're thinking that anyone with white skin is a Christian.
No,
Most Europeans are not Christians, right? You need to hang out with Christians because we do follow our religion. We really do. That's just another Islamic myth. Anyway, God bless you, bro.
You too.
God bless you. It's lovely speaking to you. God bless you. Take care. So, guys, we've just gone through the Dawah script twice in quick succession. And hopefully what you've seen is that Dawah script does not stand up to scrutiny. It is a combination of erroneous thinking, half-truths, and outright lies. And if you, as a brother or sister in the faith, take the time to study your faith, you can answer all of the Dawah arguments. And if, perhaps, because of your personality or your character, you don't have it in you to do the study, or you don't have it in you to learn the arguments, then connect with brothers and sisters like me who can. There are entire Christian ministries dedicated to apologetics. If you can't learn apologetics, you can't teach apologetics, or you can't do apologetics, then network with Christians who can, so that they can help you when you need it. Okay, God bless. All right.